Welcome to another Facebook Live. Our special guest today is an innovative marketing strategist. He's a writer, he's a speaker. You've seen him on the Huffington Post, business.com. You've even seen him on Shark Tank. Yes, he is the CEO of BizFamous Media Group, and his philosophy is that all branding and marketing must be educational, entertaining, and engaging. Welcome to the Facebook Live, ERock.
Hey, thanks, Megan. Thanks, Barry. I appreciate you both having me here today, and I hope that I'll contribute some value to your community. I know that you are all up to doing some incredibly great things yourselves.
Yeah, we're thrilled. You know, since our dear mutual friend Peter Apostle and Sasha had introduced us, you and I had a brief chat. I know you had a chat with Megan, and we just wanted to share some of your ideas because we think they're very applicable, especially now.
Well, I appreciate that. So where do we want to kick off, Barry? Where do we want to go?
So Megan, I know you had some thoughts that you wanted to do first.
So my first thing is, you know, in this day and age and in this space, I mean, Barry can attest this too. I've been speaking endlessly for years to originators about promoting their brand and business on social media, but people are always so afraid to do so. So I want to just start by you talking to these people that are afraid or haven't taken the jump yet to doing social media and promoting and marketing themselves.
Man, I consider social media it's like a blessing and a curse, right? And there's always strengths and weaknesses and everything. And I think that what social media has done is given people access to people that they normally would have an incredibly challenging time getting access to. So I like to consider like kind of two veins of social media. You have the macro and then you have the micro. And what I mean by that is the macro is like, hey, what we all think is considered social media success. We have 100 million followers, and basically you're out there putting out all forms of content. Because here's the challenge when you're a macro influencer is the second you stop contributing that content, then you kind of lose that momentum and the audience goes and shifts to wherever the breeze might take them for whoever the next macro influencer is. So, which is great. Like I have a ton of friends that are in the macro influencer space. I consider myself to be more in the micro influencer space and actually even more behind the scenes where I try to like almost like a sniper, right? It's like, hey, you have kind of a machine gun approach on the macro level. I kind of consider the micro being the more sniper level where you're able to make good connections with people, develop conversations, and ultimately that'll lead to business development. And I think what a lot of people neglect to do is when they create one new relationship, they don't focus on creating the next relationship, right? It's like, so take it to that next level. And one of the things that I always try to ask people is like, hey, if like, for example, with Barry, I'm like, hey, if you know anybody that I think is a good conversation to have, I'm always going to take that introduction because I know Barry's going to introduce me to good quality people. And so for those of you that are watching this, you know, you can pick the strategy that best suits your personality. If you're that extrovert, you love creating content, you love being on the screen, and you love that kind of large community, then go macro. But if you're more of that kind of introvert and you want to go micro and focus on building those kind of relationships, right? Because again, go build those relationships with the macro people too.
Hey, obviously I love your background. You know, we both talked about this a little bit. We both love music, we love rock and roll, and here you got Kiss in the background. I wanted you to just touch upon it. You've been a big help to some people that are in the in the frontline media space.
Well, yeah, I've been fortunate, like I said, to develop great relationships in the world of business. And it was through a mutual relationship when I was a few years ago at an event, a consumer electronics show. And I came across a gentleman who's, you know, very famous award-winning music producer. And again, like I think what happens a lot of business, this goes back to a little bit of the social media, is we're so focused, like you don't have to be self-promoting all the time. To me, it's about creating value. And it's amazing the number of people that I'll have conversations with, and they never even ask the question, well, what's something of value that I could do for you? So every time I have conversations with people, Barry, that I try to focus on what can I do to give and do something of value, and then actually try to follow up and do it. And so it all started with just a mutual friendship. Had a steak dinner with somebody, like we just stayed connected. I remember texting my friend, when we were getting to know each other better, about how I was at the gymnastics class with my daughter. Turns out he was backstage at Good Morning America that day with another famous gymnast. And it was just kind of like, oh, that was kind of cool. And then one of the days he's like, hey, I got some projects going on. Can you help me out? And basically this is what he's been doing for 20 years. And I just was like, hey, if you ever need help with anything, let me know. And that's what I did. The other thing that I think that a lot of people do with relationships is they try to withdraw too soon, right? It's like, what can I get, right? So a great example would be as a relationship I developed with one of the original sharks from the television show. Just kept providing value. I never was trying to do business, never was trying to become a business partner with them. I wasn't trying to extract anything, because it's like, hey, that's what everybody else is doing. Or everybody's trying to get, what can I get? I bet you get that a lot, Barry. People coming to you and being like, Barry, what can I get from you? What can I get from you? And usually if you go in and you just kind of lead through that relationship, that eventually when that person's ready, they're like, wow, you know what? You're actually here because you value our relationship, not just because what I can give you. Then that's what led us to actually doing business partnerships and things of that nature. So it's a little bit long game, right? Sometimes it's a challenge because you got to make money now, right? But usually when you invest in those relationships, those will pay off with big dividends.
So marry it together with, and I love where you're coming from. I actually talk about that in the book as well. To build relationships, you start by giving, not by asking. So we're 100% in alignment. It doesn't surprise me. We kind of hit it off so quickly when we spoke the first time on the phone. I think we are very kindred spirits. So marry it together for us as someone who, who's really got a great expertise in utilizing, the tool of social media and being able to amplify your message, and people listening who are mortgage professionals now, and to set the table for you, these mortgage professionals that are watching probably have been very successful. The market is starting to change a little bit. There are some more challenges out there. Refinance activity is still good, but it's not as plentiful. Purchases, the market's hot, but they're very, very difficult to work through because of the multiple bids on homes and the lack of inventory and competing forces. And it's stressful. It's always been the mortgage business, it's a stressful business to be in. But I think now people are seeing a little bit more of an elevation of stress. And then there's one other factor, is coming off of a great year economically, and people kind of got used to that, or took on a lot of expenditures to live at that lifestyle. Right. So how can we help the individuals watching to springboard themselves or maintain a high level or to amplify their message to work through this by using some of the expertise that you have?
Well, I think definitely being comfortable sharing a little bit about who you are on a professional, personal level. What I mean by that is, no, you probably don't necessarily want to be, posting everything personal about, if that's your jam and you're comfortable with that, do it. Because I think what a lot of people think is I have to be the expert, and you have to be knowledgeable. You have to know what you're doing. But at the end of the day, people are doing business with other people, and they want to do that business with people that they can relate to, that they can understand what they're going through. And so I think that a key component of it is if there's a way that you in your industry can niche down and kind of be this person of, I am the guy or the girl that handles this kind of situation or these kinds of challenges, or in this sub vertical that creates that kind of tribalism with their audience, then that's how you're going to build that relationship. And then the other thing, of course, which maybe this is an assumption that I should make, but of course, when you're building that social media audience, hopefully you're filtering them and getting them onto some sort of email database, and again, just developing relationships. And I
want to unpack that just for a minute. So there's a couple of really, really good things. I just want to make sure that we dissect it just a little bit here. So the first one is getting more personal. Can you give us an idea? Because people might be listening to this and say, okay, people love examples of just give one or two very quick ones so that people can say, okay, I got it. And that's something that I might want to pursue. And you're saying mix this in with I'm the expert in the marketplace. I understand what's going on, but here's my personal side too, right? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Right. Hey, if you're let's just say you're an avid golfer, share that, right? If you're big into cats and animals and that's your jam, share that with people, because you're not going to get everybody no matter what you do. And all that matters is that somebody sees that, hey, this is somebody that I think can relate to my situation and has common interests, right? Because at the end of the day, why does anybody choose a service provider? Right now, there's going to be the value, there's going to be the price, but at the end of the day, there's going to be some sort of trust level, some sort of respect level, and that has to be generated. And having that commonality, I mean, that's one of the key cores of influence is having that, again, unity or kind of tribalism together. So, sharing those things. And again, you could take it down to as far as you want to take it, right? Because you could talk about, hey, like, oh my God, today was a lousy day because we didn't have a deal go through. And a lot of people struggle to like kind of post that because they want to like just, hey, I'm the perfect guy, I'm the perfect girl. But if you really want to develop trust, it's okay to say, hey, things didn't go as planned, but here's how we picked up the pieces, or this is how we came up with the solution to the problem, and we got it fixed. So I think what a lot of people mistakenly do is they just chest thump, talk about how great and amazing things are. And it just seems kind of very commercial as opposed to personal. So if you can share the occasional struggle that you feel like doesn't really hurt your brand in a significant way, then those are educator risks that you have to take. But if you look at some of the different artists in the world that talk about, like, they've got like, Kiss is probably not the best, but remember back in the day, they showed up one day without any makeup. It was this huge deal. Like all of a sudden they were letting us in. So that's kind of that same kind of ethos that I think that people should be doing, especially in the world of professional services, where it's like, hey, be relatable, try to have a good sense of humor when you can. You got to be careful about that because you don't want to offend anybody. And we live in a very conscious society and you want to be very aware of that. But I think just being relatable and being on some level vulnerable, I think really builds a lot of trust fast.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
I wanted to dive in a little bit more because there's a lot of people that are listening to this that they're thinking, man, I will take any mortgage that lands on my desk right now. But we really talk in marketing about finding that specific niche to be able to draw in that target audience. So for anyone listening right now that's maybe confused about what their niche is or who that target audience is, how do you help people discover that?
Well, I think that goes back to their kind of core values and what's important to you as a human, what inspired you to want to be to come into the mortgage industry. What is it that is motivating you to get up every single day? Because at the end of the day, hey, it's great if you want to make a buck. I'm a capitalist. I like making a nice income and have many businesses that we do okay with. But at the end of the day, hopefully we're here to do something that makes a difference in someone's lives. And so how do you differentiate yourself? I mean, again, that goes back to, where does your passion lie? I mean, could you be the mortgage person for the golf enthusiast? Could you be the mortgage professional for for dog lovers as a different example, right? So how do you kind of like niche down so that when people say like, hey, you know what, I'll get here, let me do this. All right. So this is a cool lesson that I think that I can share with your audience. So one of the things that, and again, we're coming back into the real world, right? So I don't know if Barry, how much do you guys do physical? Do you guys advocate and talk about connecting on a physical level in terms of like networking and events and things of that nature?
Yeah, that's the way it always was. The hiatus that we had due to COVID, thank God, is beginning to come around now, and people are beginning to feel more comfortable. We were just at a conference that was a really wonderful conference, the Vision Summit. Megan spoke there, I spoke there, and it was just great to see. But there is a lot that is coming up that we're seeing, starting to develop, especially in late summer and into the fall. So absolutely, we are seeing that.
Well, so one of the things that I recommend that you do when you're first connecting in the real world, and what happens is a lot of times people will just like, they pull out their business card. And to me, that's just one of the worst mistakes that you can make right out of the gate is have a real conversation. Try to get to know somebody. And I always love to ask questions to lead into the conversation so I can learn a little bit more about the person. But at some point, again, we're there to network as business people, and someone's going to ask me the question of, what is it that you do for your living? Now, I could just simply answer something along the lines, I'm an investor, or I'm an advisor, or I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm a marketer, right? I could create what I call these category type responses. And so a lot of people would probably say like, I'm a mortgage broker. right? I mean, that's probably what the de facto response would be. Instead, you would want to self-brand. And so what I tell people, depending on who I'm talking to, because again, I've asked questions, so that the answer I might give you, Barry, might be different than what I might give Megan, because it depends on what my goal is with those conversations. But one of the questions that people ask is, well, what do you do for a living? And I'll say, I help make businesses famous.
Well, what do you mean?
And that's exactly right, Megan. They'll ask another question like, wait a minute, wait, what? Like, now I don't know where to put you into my file system, into my filing cabinet, in my brain. And so what I always recommend people do at these events is, instead of just saying, hey, I'm a mortgage broker, you could be like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something off the cuff here really quickly, but
well, clearly you're helping people achieve the dream of home ownership, you know,
right. I mean, you're
doing, or giving them the best financial advice on the largest transaction they're likely to make, something like that.
Yeah, I force banks to cow down to the consumer and be at their will. Now that's a pretty hyperbole, right? But it makes you laugh, right? And so that's the whole point, is that you want to, at the end of the day, you want to be memorable. You want to do something where people aren't like, well, I know 5 other mortgage brokers, right? And at the end of the day, they'll be like, well, what do you mean you help with home ownership? And what do you help that you make these banks bend to the will of the consumer? And then you come back and say, well, I help people get affordable housing through my mortgage broker services. But there's one thing that you may not like about what I do, is I specifically focus on people who are golf enthusiasts, or however niche you want to get to, because that'll be the thing that differentiates you against all the other mortgage professionals. And when they're ready to come back, they're going to pull that from their subconscious file, because you created that kind of new neural experience, that little spark inside their subconscious brain that'll say, you know what, that was somebody that was a little bit different, that wasn't boring, and I remember them.
Love it. Now, you did also talk about that as you generate some of these marketing, as you generate some of the leads that will come from marketing from social media, you're getting them into email formats as well. I know you touched upon it, so just expand on that a little for us, please.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously there's kind of what you would have your direct call to actions. And again, there's different kinds of social media. You have your organic, because you're just posting content, but then you also have your paid ads. And usually with your paid ads, you're trying to drive them to some sort of landing page, some sort of offer. But, from an organic perspective, there's all different ways that you can do that. What I would recommend, again, depends if you're macro or if you're micro. Right. If you're macro, you're going to need to use some sort of tool, like you could use a text message opt-in, right? Like text Barry to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then you can drive calls to action there. And by the way, that's a great way to put calls to action on any kind of digital signage that you have, any physical signage, so that you draw people into that. Because if you can get them on texting is like a 97% open rate, right? Direct message communication. The other thing that I recommend you do is, if you're micro, you build into those relationships, and maybe you do some direct messaging at first. And then you basically say, hey, I'd like to send you over a little bit of intel. Mind if, what's your best email address? And again, if they're comfortable with you and they feel like they can trust you, they're going to happily give it to you. And then just make sure that whatever you're sending them gives them some sort of value.
That's great.
Now, you mentioned that all type of content needs to be pertaining of value. It needs to be engaging, and it needs to be entertaining. And oftentimes in the mortgage space, it can feel somewhat challenging not to make content that is valuable, but to make content that is engaging and entertaining. So do you have any tips and tricks for us here in the mortgage space on how to up the entertainment level?
Again, it's going to go to your personality. Are you an extrovert or an introvert? Right. So if you're an introvert, one thing that you can always leverage is other people's expertise, which is what we're doing here to some extent, right? Which is bring the people. And I'm not saying I'm the most entertaining person on the planet, because I'm not. I'm married to one of the most entertaining people on the planet. But bring people into your ecosystem that can bring that entertainment value. And so as an introvert, you can do that. Also, share stories, right? Like, you can share the good, the bad, the ugly, right? And theme it around that. So share those stories and really go into the emotional side of things when and where possible, right? Because I think we're so worried about being, true professionals. And if you just go like randomly look, I don't know how often your audience is on LinkedIn, but you'll see people on LinkedIn now talking about how they overcame some sort of personal challenge in their life as a professional level, and how maybe they're now sober and they didn't talk about that before. Right. But they're now just coming out and talking about that. And you'll just see like massive engagement because someone had the courage to go out there and say, hey, I'm not a perfect human being. Right. I think there's a lot of struggle in the world of entrepreneurship right now where we think we have all the answers. We have to look good, smell good, talk good. We got to kind of be perfect. Right. We're not fallible humans, which we all are. And we all know watching this that we all go through our struggles. We all have our own quote unquote demons, right? And so, share what you feel comfortable sharing where, again, it doesn't really affect you as a brand. Because again, with what you're doing, you are working with professional financial institutions. So it's a very conscientious line. But I think that, you being who you are and just being honest, and I don't even like saying the word authentic because I think it's a commoditized word, like just be your real authentic self. Like, no shit. That's just being you, right? So just excuse my language, but
Okay,
just be who you are. Don't try to be someone that you're not, right? If you're not that person that's this gregarious and like woohoo type person, that's okay because you're going to attract the people that like that, and that's probably who you're not going to jive with, and you probably won't close those deals, right? You talking about, hey, I'll take any mortgage I can get. I'd rather take it from someone who's like, hey, if I'm a laid back, kind of just chill type of a person, right? And I work with somebody like that, we'll probably get along. I probably won't have to worry about closing the deal, and I'll probably get a lot more referrals because they appreciate that kind of like process of how the business comes together.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be very important for referral sources to have that type of a good chemistry between the way that you interact and the being your natural self with that person would be a lot easier to maintain a long-term relationship with.
Well, absolutely, because at the end of the day, like we all know that we need to be professional. We all have to make sure that we're at least one level up of where we think we're supposed to be from a marketing and kind of branding position. But at the end of the day, character always comes through in time. And so when we like talk about doing business with companies and entrepreneurs, I'm never in a rush, right? Because I know that if the deal is supposed to go through, it's going to happen, and time always reveals character, right? So, if you're building up the pipeline big enough, you'll filter down the right people that are going to be your best customers. And then the other thing that I cannot stress enough is ask for introductions, right? Now, which may be antithesis to what I think a lot of people talk about, which is, hey, get referrals. Now, for me, like words have like a weight or a vibe. And if I say, hey, give me a referral, that means I kind of expect you to pre-sell someone for me, kind of like queue them up, and I just got to kind of close the deal. And what I prefer to recommend that people do is just ask for introductions. It's a lot lighter, right? It's like, hey, if you had a good experience, would you be opposed to just making an introduction or two to someone else that you might think could value what I have to share, with whatever that free report would be. And I think that makes it a lot easier for people to say, yeah, I can make an intro. That's kind of easy. But if you ask for a referral, to me, that kind of feels heavy and like a higher level of commitment.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a huge kind of key thing. And you mentioned something in the beginning, and I wanted to bring it up again because we're talking about referral partners right now. And Barry and I always do this thing where every morning Facebook notifies you of whose birthday it is. So we use it as a way to filter our friends, the people that are no longer active, or, it's someone that you haven't talked to in 20 years. They're not engaging with any of your content. Cut them, get rid of them, make room for more people. And in turn, whenever I speak to individuals, I'm always encouraging them, add your past clients as friends, add your referral partners or the referral partners that you want to have. And then you mentioned, Eric, you brought up how you need to be genuine with people, especially in this micro marketing aspect. You need to be genuine with people. Don't ask what you want from them. So my question with this is, if someone's goal is to get more referral partners, they're going out, they're sending friend requests to people that they hope will send business to them later. I understand from the aspect we don't want to email them right away, slide into their DMs and say, hey, I'm here. You want to start referring me business? But we also bring up the fact how we need to be vulnerable and authentic and build that relationship. How is that possible if our first motive is we want to do business with this person, yet we need to show up in a way where we're not asking for anything? And when is the right time to ask for something?
When you believe you've provided enough deposit into the relationship that you think it warrants a withdrawal. And that's a judgment call, right? So the way I look at it is that if I can do something of value first, then it makes it, again, it goes back to influence. And it's like, hey, Barry, let's go out to lunch, right? And I buy lunch. And let's say I take the guy, and I'm a jerk, and we go to Taco Bell, right? And we go to lunch, and I buy him lunch. And then we go out to lunch, and we go to the Four Seasons. The human subconscious or the programming of reciprocity is, well, you got lunch last time and I want to get you lunch this time. But he'll probably not be happy where, if we go to Taco Bell for lunch the third time, right? So there's this, no one likes to be in debt, right? We're talking about, a financial instrument of, hey, if we could all go and throw down $500,000 or $2 million and go buy a home, and we just do that with cash, that'd be great. But that's why we have mortgages, right? Give the cost to the bank and put the risk on them and be smart with your own money. But to go back to your question, Megan, is going to be what can I do to hopefully provide value to you? So in the conversation is, hey, if you need help on more the level of just getting a mortgage, right? So what are the things that you have in your ecosystem that can provide value to the person that you're engaging with them with? Do they have a pet that needs a kennel? Is there things that you can do of value that, for moving companies or real estate agents or staging people? I mean, what's the whole ecosystem what that person needs when you're having these conversations, other than just, hey, let me direct pitch you? Because again, that's the differentiator, right? If I'm the place, here, this is another, I think, low-hanging fruit, and I don't know if this is legal because, again, I'm not in your specific industry day in, day out. But can I sit there and say, hey, anybody who comes in and does business with me is going to get, I don't know, some sort of spiff? You can't
do that. You can't do that one.
Not even movie tickets.
No, you can't do anything of value in exchange for referral, but you can do it for the customer. You can give your customer anything, but you just can't give it for a referral source. But that's gotcha. The mortgage industry is heavily regulated. But no, the idea though is that you want to start by giving, and I understand right. that's the right place to come from. Is you want to start by giving. In any relationship, doesn't even have to be business. Just a social relationship is always going to be better off when people are going to be viewing you as somebody who has something to give or has something to offer.
It brings me back to, Barry always says, how you become magnetic. And it really just reminds me of that, as if we're wanting leads, if we're wanting referral partners, more business, you have to give something of value. You have to make that person feel good. And so at the end of the day, I kind of think it's all down to just becoming magnetic.
Yeah, if you make them feel smarter because you've done the work and the research and you have something of value from an educational standpoint to offer, or you make them feel better, you are able to help them in some way to feel better. So these are really important things, and I think that what you're explaining here is along those same lines. Take that and provide that in all of your interactions, whether they be personal, whether they be online as well.
Well, here's one other little thing that you can do, and this is not an easy thing to do, but it can also pay off big dividends. But basically, put it into your program where you'll take 10 people off your list, right? Because everybody's like, hey, I'm going to send out a big database blast, and you do it through your CRM, and there's the unsubscribe button. Basically, maybe go out and every day or every week, send out 15, 20, 50, just private messages. Just, you can copy paste and just say, hey, I wanted to see how you're doing. How's everything in your life? And there's not even Like there's no like promotion. It's just like, hey, just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. Is everything going all right in your world? And again, that could be before you're trying to close the deal. It could be after you close the deal, but just genuinely reaching out other than just, hey, I have a commercial intent, will just put a huge deposit in there, because people will be like, oh, like you'll be amazed at what people will come back with, and they'll be, oh my God, this, and this. And then you can sit there and say, hey, well, I'm glad that we're staying connected. Let me know if there's anything you need help with. I'm always here for you. And at the end of the day, if that'll be the differentiator, and that's again how people will remember you. So you don't have to be entertaining to be memorable. You just have to, like, to your point, you can be thoughtful and you can be kind and you can be professional and considerate.
Although I do like, when we were in the green room, this was like months ago when we were talking, and you kind of mentioned it just right now and before, how if you're not that person that's outgoing, you can get someone to do these things with you. And it brought up that chiropractic video that you helped them out of Port St. Lucie. And tell us a little bit about that. So it's a newscast kind of system set up, and you can help our subscribers with this as well, I believe.
Yeah, so we've developed a full-blown content creation system that's designed to help any entrepreneur overcome the challenges of creating quality content so that they can communicate their value proposition in a meaningful way and actually address some of these neuropsychological things that we're talking about when it comes to influence, storytelling, positioning. And so what we've done is we've actually created a newsroom style ecosystem where we'll actually bring in the client, if you will. So let's just say it's the mortgage broker, and talk about and kind of pull the story out of them, right? Because I think that's one of the biggest challenges that people have is like, here's what I do, this is how much it costs, and they don't really like kind of pull people in. So we've kind of like figured out through having done this many times of kind of, here's the format, here's the questions, we check out what Google's looking for, what are people searching for online, and then we basically help guide them along the journey so that by the time that they're ready, they're kind of queued up and they have their talking points. And then we have this nice kind of casual, friendly conversation. And I'm not sure how long it was since we last spoke, but I remember, we first started formulating this process, and we did it with a guy in the credit counseling space. And so I remember him kind of being a little bit more of a challenge because he was very skeptical and not sure what the outcome would be. And I was just like, look, we're gonna create this content, we're gonna get it published, we're gonna get it syndicated. Just give it a little bit of time, because as entrepreneurs, what do we want? We want it now, we want it yesterday, right? Mm. And so basically he was like, all right, I'll trust the process. And then he came back to us last year, and I thought he was gonna be like, I thought he was going to maybe like kind of go back and kind of not being like a sourpuss, like it didn't go as well. And he's like, man, it worked so well that I want to do another one and do an update. And that's what we did. Okay. And so, it's not a magic potion sauce, right? But it's just definitely something that's designed to help elevate the professionals that want to get their story out in a meaningful way, create the content, try to take away as much as the thinking as possible in terms of trying to be creative, kind of architecting the story, and then actually creating that content, publishing it so that it can be found, and you end up winning more clients, more business.
I love that. I think that it is so important. And if you guys are wanting help with this, we'll go ahead, put ERock's contact link in there. You guys can reach out. And if you mention Barry's name, you might get an extra little special perk. Wrap this up though, and thank you guys so much for your time. But ERock, I have one more question for you, and it's really for everyone listening right now. If you were to summarize 3 tips for them as far as marketing, getting out there, what would they be and why?
Focus on relationships over business, because without that, you're not going to get the business at the end of the day. This is the world we live in, know, like, and trust. And that's not enough anymore. So it's know, like, trust, and respect, right? So at the end of the day, I'm sure probably everybody knows 1, 2, 3 real estate agents, chiropractors. So what's kind of the deciding factor? Respect. And that's, again, the niche of just, hey, I'm the person that helps in this specific niche, because then I respect you more because we have affinity, right? I would say that always focus on making sure that you have your core values and you articulate those, right? This is one of the things that we'll do with clients is we'll lead and say, hey, we're interested in doing business with you. And like, hey, we're interested in doing business with you. Hey, we're a fit company, right? We care about freedom, innovation, and trust. Tell me a little bit about your core values, and you'll be surprised at the number of entrepreneurs and business owners who can't articulate that. So I would make sure that I'm coming from that perspective. And then two is do the right thing, even when it sucks to do the right thing.
I love that. Well, you guys heard it from ERock himself. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Thank you, Barry. And thank you to everyone that decided to tune in. We'll see you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for letting me be here and contribute value to your community, Barry and Megan. I'm very grateful. Thank you.